Our voyage to find an elusive Tasmanian tiger continues today through the rural towns and farmland that border the Central Plateau. But before we make our last stop for supplies, we're taking a minor detour west into the vast rainforests that cover this area. They're populated by numerous water sources leaking down from the Great Lakes that tower above our current position. And that's what makes this such a prime location for thylacine families to hide out in refuge, away from our interference. This is some of the most isolated and difficult terrain we've faced so far on our journey, considered seemingly impossible for humans to even penetrate. So to help guide us through today, we'll be checking out Ty the Tasmanian Tiger 2 Bush Rescue. Hopefully we won't need bush rescuing. From 2004, what can I say other than I'm bloody terrified just looking at this? Don't get me wrong, it's a cool cover, but a helicopter? A go-kart? A mech suit? It's like this series went on super steroids overnight. Why is all this here? Well, I guess there is only one way to find out. We get a brief recap of the previous events before the title screen hits us with this. Kart racing. Spelled unusually with a C, I might add. And wow, I can't believe this is actually a thing. But look, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Since we last saw our furry bush friends, they've established their own bush rescue division. We joined the gang as they're working to deflect an assault on the Currawong prison where Boss Cass is being held. It's actually a hot little opener, until just a few minutes in, when we stumble across the Battle Bunyip. How excited I am. And almost immediately after that, we mount up on a huge ass turret and have to take out a barrage of airships. I mean, come on, this is gonna be some Wrath of Cortex, Enter the Dragonfly type shit, isn't it? We reach the prison to find Fluffy and her ginormous mutated frillneck army. Then, after a brief punch-kick segment of button-mashing madness, Cass is freed and escapes to form his own country, Cassopolis. So, unlike its predecessor, we're actually moving through an open world this time, completing various tasks for the characters we meet, as was the style at the time. Our HQ is in the town of Barramji, and let me just say, I love this place. Thematically once again, Chrome have just nailed the atmosphere. This looks like a genuine small Aussie town. In fact, I think I've been through here before. And it's actually got a lot going on as well. Pedestrians, various stores for equipment and upgrades, actually giving the opals some value, but there are also a lot of collectibles and hidden secrets to uncover here as well. Good stuff, honestly, and the same goes for all of the personalities and dialogue, visuals, and especially the soundtrack. It's all perfect once again. But this is just base camp, a tiny area inside of the sprawling southern rivers we get to explore throughout the game. We're given a list of objectives and places to visit, so jump in the ute with Shazza and let's get started. It's a good concept for a game, again reminding me of that Saturday morning cartoon vibe with a bunch of animals running off to save their homes. Well, aside from the giant mech suit battles anyway. What's that got to do with anything? Once you've driven to your destination, we hop out and continue into the more footwork-oriented levels that you'd expect from Ty. Levels feature a much more linear design this time around, which is honestly fine with me. It allows them to be more focused on delivering enjoyable platformer challenges while still maintaining the various split paths and hidden areas within filled with collectibles. I think this design works with Ty's gameplay style a lot better than the fully open levels we saw last time. So this gameplay combination is like a mix of Jak 3's open world and Crash Bandicoot's platforming focused levels. But as good as that combination sounds, there are unfortunately some immediate flaws. To be perfectly clear, this is not an open world. Yes, we do get free reign to go wherever we please, but only on the roads. Any actual levels or other areas need to be accessed from a designated parking space and then explored on foot. So really, this acts more as a hub area instead of the Grand Theft Auto style you might expect. And this is a big hub area, seriously. And just like every other not-so-open world game, it lacks the variety of possible routes to take between each area. So with no direct path to any given location, it means you'll be backtracking through many of these roads before and after missions. And I really like how some of these roads are specifically blocked just to make the trip even more tedious. But at least it's something, because there really isn't much of anything else to do out here. This part of the game really only exists as a portal to the different levels. As for the levels themselves, they can be a little too brief for my liking, but at least we're getting some new themes here. We've got your typical bush and billabongs, but also volcanic caves, and this really cool treetops level. It's like a raised bushwalk with giant nets down below to catch you if you fall off. I really like that, and it reminds me of the ghost ship in Medieval, where falling down doesn't equal death. However, this also proves my point that Chrome got lazy, resorting to recycled level themes in the first game. While I would say that the newer locations are maybe a little bland in comparison, they're still fun to explore, even with the inclusion of these mech suits to complete certain objectives. But that brings us to the problem of this game. The mech suits are not the only vehicles, and the footwork levels are actually few and far between. Along with those, you'll also be given a few brief roadside missions that can sometimes serve as world-building scenarios, but are mostly forgettable. Other times, you'll drive to the most remote location on the map just to be given an item that needs to be taken all the way back to where you just came from, further adding to the backtracking present here. And then we have the designated vehicle segments. Now let me preface this by saying, I've got no problem with vehicle segments appearing in any kind of game. Quite often, they're actually some of the more memorable and enjoyable levels. I mean, just look at Outback Safari in the previous Ty game. It's a standard I'll hold future games to, this series in particular, of how a vehicle level should be done. What I don't like is poorly executed distractions that ultimately feel like they have zero impact on the overall narrative, especially when they don't even fit in contextually in the first place. Luckily, Ty 2's Bush Rescue theme does suit a large variety of these segments incredibly well. We've got to save livestock, repair underwater pipes in shark-infested waters, and save rural towns from raging bushfires. These all fit within this world and actually help to set it in some reality. That's great. However, I wouldn't say that for all of them, and gameplay-wise, they're honestly nothing special. They lack heart and are mostly void of the personality and character we see in abundance everywhere else we go. There is no challenge to any of these whatsoever, so they're boring to play, but possibly the biggest offence these levels are guilty of, in my opinion, is that they dominate the entire game. It just isn't enough to already have such a large set of mech suits that come into play within what should be the main focus of this game, the main platforming segments, but with all of these other vehicles, they've become the main focus of this game, and it comes closer to representing a minigame marathon than it does any kind of open world or platforming collectathon. But having said all that, I'd like to be clear on what I'm getting at with this. Out of all the vehicles featured here, I'd be lying if I called any of it bad. There is nothing technically wrong or broken with most of this stuff, and I'm sure a lot of people would actually really enjoy this. But just because these additions are not the absolute worst thing ever, that doesn't mean they're not a complete hodgepodge of random elements mixed in together that's ultimately unnecessary fluff, in my opinion. Man, that's beautiful. Speaking of Fluffy, remember her from the original game, being introduced right before the final gauntlet? Well, Cass's right-hand woman plays a much larger role in this game, heading out to steal the various components the bad guys require. Working alongside Carlos, the scientific uncle of Julius, who is on our side, they're planning to combine the warm blood of the innocent mammals of Barramji with the cold-blooded reptile DNA to create an army of mutated frillnecks. So that means we're constantly running into Fluffy on our journey, including her various henchmen, like Patchy here. This first boss fight is just okay. A little too simple for my liking, but it's still enjoyable nonetheless. I just wish I could say the same for all of this driving. Trust me, it doesn't take long for this aspect of the game to really burn a hole through your patience. I just wish there was something to do out here. Maybe it would have worked better if all of these different vehicle mini-games were instead used as side missions, like we see in Grand Theft Auto. San Andreas had the firefighting jobs, and we've got a similar concept here. So why not let us fly across southern rivers like an actual open world game working to resist bushfires? I feel like that would have been a much better use for all of these different vehicles. Introduce them with a single mission during the main story, then leave them exclusively for side content to make more time for what we all actually want out of this game. Collectathon platforming. Well, believe it or not, the game does actually include some side missions. Stumbling into one of these kiosks allows you to enter a race, but take a guess how fucking random this shit is. Rather than take full advantage of all these empty roads across this huge map, Chrome instead decided, nah, let's design a totally separate kart racing mode and add in a bunch of different tracks for a gimmick totally unrelated to the rest of the game. Why? I don't understand why. Now, to be fair, these are not the worst kart racing courses I've ever seen, and as a result, we've actually got a pretty competent game here, hidden within a bigger game. But that still doesn't excuse this completely pointless addition. We're only racing for opals after all, no actual unique collectibles, so it serves no purpose. I get the idea of adding this in as a fun distraction, but we shouldn't be focused on distractions here. We should be focused on taking what we learned from the original game and improving upon it, not chasing down a bunch of incoherent garbage and forcing all of the potential for a great classic game into the back seat. I just don't get it.
God damn it! There should be thylacines all over this place. It seems like the perfect spot for them, really. There's fresh flowing water, plenty of shelter from the elements, and humans haven't touched the land here for more than a 30-mile radius. So, I don't know. I guess we'd better take a drive back into town to see if we can find some help. Yeah, as if we haven't done enough driving already today.
Fluffy's second attack is on an oil rig, where Ty has to climb his way up, putting out all of the fires along the way. When we reach the top, Buster debuts and fucks us off to the second boss arena. This is actually a really cool fight, as Buster is made up of all of these little nanobots, allowing him to take several different forms to attack. It does go on a bit long, but I really like this boss, and it's definitely one of the more visually satisfying battles I've ever played. It certainly shits all over the one-on-one mech suit turret battle against Fluffy later on in the game, that's for sure. But then it's back into more errands, and that's a bloody accurate description to tell you the truth. This is literally Errands the video game. Running all over for people doing a bunch of tasks that ultimately don't make you feel like you're even working towards defeating Boss Cass. All we really get to do here is clean up after him. It's also at this point in the game when things begin to take a strange turn. I hate to say it, but the platforming levels start to suffer the more we play through. Some of them don't really have anything going on at all, but there are also some that are much more open, calling back to the collectathon format of the first game, though these ones pale in comparison. I still wouldn't call them bad, but it's just much of the same. We've got such a large arsenal of different rangs, but much like the original, only a few are actually necessary to get through, while the rest seem to serve little or even no purpose. A lot of these, and the upgrades you can purchase, are only here for the sake of finding all of the collectibles. Collectibles that have literally no purpose, aside from contributing to that completion score. It's just kind of sad, really. But these feelings establish themselves even further as the game starts to sort of ruin itself. We get one mission where we travel to this cemetery within Barramji to find this kid named Booney who misses his dead mother. Now that's a pretty serious topic to deal with, but Ty just rolls up like, "You should go home." And he does. And that's everything said of it. Why even include such a dark theme just to immediately throw it away like that? We also start to encounter aliens all over the place that don't fit the theme of this game at all. Did you run out of Australian animals to include, or are you just trying to stretch my disbelief beyond its limits? It just seems like such an out-of-nowhere inclusion. Well, until the level where you're punching out fucking dinosaurs from the comfort of a mech suit. I'm not even making that up, but good God, do I wish I was. How did we go from delivering lunch to the workers and making sure the kids have sunscreen at the beach to KOing Jurassic beasts with a mech suit while playing as an extinct Tasmanian fucking tiger? I just don't even know what this game is trying to be anymore, and honestly, I don't think the game knows either. It's just trying to include so many different things that it's impossible for the experience to feel coherent and sensible. The weird thing is, this formula could have been golden, as we have seen in the past. I'm imagining a Simpsons hit and run type game with driving errands, but where you can also jump out, run around and explore some actual levels. Why didn't they do that? Tai 2 is just another classic example of a game trying to crossbreed itself into a new genre without any consideration of how that will even work in combination with the previously established format. So, let's just hope the final gauntlet is an improvement over the first game. It shouldn't be too hard. Watching Ty blast a dunny would make for a better ending than that grueling shit. After a false attack, distracting Ty and the gang, Cass kidnaps all the residents of Barramji to form his mutated army. So the team heads off to rescue them. Of course, everyone gets their own custom mech suit, including Ty in the Shadow Bunyip, which means that this entire gauntlet is just button mashing madness, because there is no strategy or challenge, just slam the button until you win. It's really not interesting at all. Even Patchy and Buster get a second chance, but they don't last long. We do, however, get an actual fight against Boss Cass this time around, and it's honestly not a bad fight either. We get a few rounds against his updated nanobots, some lava attacks, and finally, we just pummel him into submission. I would be happier if we just had the boss fight without all this other stuff, but while it was nothing special, it was still a good ending for this game. Bush Rescue are awarded some Thunder Egg medals, and the cassowary cunt gets locked away once again. I've got to say though, easily the highlight of this game has to be seeing these credits. And no, not because I'm sick of playing the game or anything, but because I love what they did here. The credits are out to dry on the old Hills hoist. It's amazing. Obviously it means nothing to the rest of the world, but this cheeky nod to an iconic symbol of Australian life just makes me feel so warm and fuzzy inside. Look, I really wanted to get into this game coming off of the first, but despite the atmosphere and theming, tone, soundtrack, and overall presentation knocking it out of the park again, everything else was a step backwards in my opinion. While the more linear structure of the levels suits the TIE formula better than being a collectathon, they take a back seat to the overwhelming amount of vehicle mini-games and lengthy fetch quests. Clearly a lot of time was put into these additions, but the time really should have been spent elsewhere. We still have a large checklist of collectible items that really mean nothing at all, and despite 2 different rang stores and a bunch of upgrades, we're still only using 2 or 3 of these things at most to go through the game, with everything else only being used for the meaningless collectibles. It's such a shame. And like I keep saying, there is nothing bad here on its own, but mixed into this muddled formula, this confused sequel is a pretty average experience. Ty the Tasmanian Tiger 2 Bush Rescue gets 5 out of 10. I get that Rockstar completely changed the gaming world when they moved GTA into 3 dimensions, but it's still so baffling to me why so many brand new IPs would rather drop the little work they needed to polish their idea for the chance to cash in on this trend. I mean, how many times have we seen it, particularly with games from this era, and this genre as well? But I guess the real question is, What is unique individuality when you could instead gamble on a mere slice of the pie? As an idea for a Saturday morning cartoon, what this game tried to do is just perfect in my opinion. But translated into a video game, the execution hurt it in the end. Funny thing is, there was actually an animated TV series based on Ty's bush rescue shenanigans pitched at the time, but it never saw the light of day. What it would have been like, we'll never know. But what I do know is that we've had 2 episodes now without a single thylacine sighting. So we're heading into the local pub here to see if we can get some information out of these locals.
Be lucky to get bullshit out of me, mate. That's about all.
Get your line, do I? Before the blues start.
Sorry, mate. I nearly punched your boy. He said it was summer. He's looking forward to it. Fuck you there a while, mate.
Score, mate, or what?
No, you're winning, so I'm not scoring. You went through the side, you mate.
Excuse me?
What can I get for you, mate?
Well, I was wondering if you could point me in the direction of someone who could help me find a Tasmanian tiger?
Listen, mate, you want to be careful coming in here asking stupid questions like that. You'll find yourself in trouble.
Yeah, a lot of trouble, mate. So you'll want to fucking watch yourself.
Okay, mate, no worries. I'll just... sorry to bother you. Have a good afternoon. Fuck. Okay, that didn't go so well, so I think we'd best just get out of here for now. So until next time, I'm Square-Eyed Jack, and I hope you have a great fuck.
Heard you was looking to track down a tiger. I could help you with that.
Really? Do you know where I can find one?
I know what happened to the last bloke that went looking for them. They say he went mad up there, lost his mind, and never come back.
Okay, well, I appreciate the story, but if you can't help...
Do you understand?
Yes, I understand.
Over and behind this mountain, beyond the black stump. That's where you can find the tigers.
Thanks.
You be careful out there. It's a dangerous track.